Now, we're not talking about anything in specific, and we're not trying to say anything negative about it, because Azadari plays a big part in us being human beings. To be human isn't just about having a rational side to you. What the Azadari does, it helps you with your emotional side and connect to Allah and the Ahlul Bayt and their tragedy and their sufferings. And through that, you're able to elevate yourself even spiritually. So there's no doubt whatsoever that Azadari, generally speaking, is a good thing, and not to diss any of the rituals or what have you, because that's not our intentions here. But the question is, have you guys always felt a spiritual connection with Azadari growing up, and any of the rituals that have taken place in your centers, or have you ever felt like it was a foreign thing to you?
Yeah, absolutely. We do feel, at least I do, inshallah, everyone does, a spiritual connection with the Azadari of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, because the vast majority of our religion is connected with Ahlul Bayt and the tragedy and the sufferings of Ahlul Bayt. The ulama, the scholars say that it is the Azadari of Imam Hussein alayhi salam that has kept the Shia faith, the maktab of Ahlul Bayt, alive. And had it not been for this Azadari of Imam Hussein, the enemies would have pretty much
taken over,
destroyed this faith. But each and every year we commemorate Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and his martyrdom is like we give allegiance again to Imam Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. And through this Azadari, we are known, the Shias are known because of the Azadaris amongst the different schools of Islam, different sects of this religion. So I feel very much connected with Azadari, and to be honest, had it not been for this Azadari, maybe I would have not felt the same interest, or I guess the same proximity to this religion. It is the Azadari which takes it to a whole new level.
Yeah.
It is this Azadari of Imam Hussein alayhi salam which teaches us to stay away from sin, which teaches us to promote good deeds, which teaches us to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because at the end of the day, Imam Hussein gave everything for the sake of the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for me, Azadari is all positive, because it has taught me and my family and the mu'mineen, the Shia, many great lessons that could not be learned otherwise.
No, fantastically said. I don't know how I'm going to top that. Azadari is, whenever you talk about Azadari, you cannot leave that man out, Imam Hussein alayhi salam. It's because of him, his profound understanding and intellect to make that decision at that time, and did what he did. It was not something that a normal human being could come up or conjure up. And he knew that he was doing something for time itself. His message transcended time, which is why I've never met him. I've never met the people in the event of Karbala, yet I feel this attachment to them that's almost like tangible, that's unreal, and I'm surprised I feel that way. And I think Azadari is the one that helps me interact. Because it is an interaction at the end of the day. There's rituals involved. It's not like a simple lecture, the speaker is speaking on the pulpit, we sit down, we listen. Yes, that's a key part of it, but there's also other rituals that we commemorate, we perform, and that's the interaction that allows us to get closer to Imam Hussein, thus ultimately getting closer to his message, what he stood for. Amal bil ma'ruf, nahi anil munkar, refraining from evil and enjoining the good. And I think it encourages, it's not the end result. It's not like Azadari is it. Once you've done it, you've done it. No, I think that's a stepping stone. Once you go into it, you need to learn more about Imam Hussein. You need to learn more about the event of Karbala and his story and his family and everyone else. And that kind of encourages you to do that. That who, over 1,400 years ago, came up with such an idea or performed such an act or gave up his life and his family members' lives, and how a message like that has transcended time. He left a legacy, and you would try to emulate that. Obviously, you will never reach that level, but you may get close. You never know. You can leave here with a legacy. You could be known as a martyr or someone who struggled in the way of God, etc., etc. That's what Azadari means for me. That's what
there seems to be two types of ways you can look at Azadari. So you have Azadari as a concept, and although the concept, it helps your emotional side, but if you look at it on a higher level, it's not something which contradicts other parts of the religion, such as Tawheed, the Nubuwwah, the Imamah. If anything, it gives you more of a connection with that. And if we think about it, we're not crying for no reason, we're not beating our chest for no reason, we're commemorating the martyrdom of people, the greatest of people, who ultimately gave everything for Allah. So when you have Azadari in your head and Allah is the end goal, that's extremely positive. But then you have the ritualistic side of it. Again, we're not dissing anyone or anything, but do you feel like sometimes it has felt foreign to people, whether they've been born Muslim or they've converted to the religion, that they felt out of place, usually due to what's being recited? Because a lot of the recitations that take place, regardless of how beautiful they are, they only cater towards certain cultures. I didn't grow up listening to Matam or Latmiyat or anything like that, so when I first came to the centers, I did feel it. There was this powerful feeling of I want to beat my chest, I want to give my heart to Allah, Imam Hussein. But beyond that, I've always felt like I've never really understood all these recitations, and for a time I was only listening to these recitations because I was using them as replacement for something which, for example, music which I shouldn't have been listening to, but because of the culture I grew up with. So when I realized that I was listening to those latmiyat as a replacement, I thought, what, I can't take Azadari as a form of entertainment.
Yeah.
It should be something that comes from the heart. I can't entertain myself through the tragedy of the Imam.
Yeah.
But I think we also have to be real with ourselves and say, we're not getting rid of our rituals, but are we lagging behind in terms of how Azadari is evolving in the Western world?
I get where you're coming from, bro, and I think that is where the leaders of the community you're from and leaders of other communities failed to address a situation where they know they have a lot of youngsters coming in and they are born and bred over here and they may not necessarily understand. They have to step up and do some research, and make sure that they're catering for each and every Azadar moment that comes to the mosques. And if they haven't done that they've done a disservice to their community. So I think they're to blame mostly. And kind of going along with what you're saying, there's another element to Azadari which I feel needs to be addressed in this day and age. It is being aware of your neighbors, respecting your neighbors. For example, we do have certain rituals that are performed out in the open, in public, or even in our mosques. So when we have a big night,
rituals, for example, when you have the Arba'in procession,
the procession that we have, the marches that we have to be mindful of all the people around there, and that's very basic.
I think sometimes people get, they become very sensitive when you tell them to be considerate about how you perform your Azadari.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm not questioning anyone's intentions. I'm not telling you stop doing your Azadari, but let's be real. At the end of the day, we do not own this religion. Imam Hussein does not belong to us. So, I'm sure your love is there. But at the same time, the Ahlul Bayt have also told us, be mindful of how you present yourself to people. Don't be a reason why people turn away. So it's not to say give it all up, but at the end of the day, recognize that yes, you have a cultural expression of how you perform your Azadari, but just bear in mind that the other person may not understand that. And when we've kept to ourselves, coming into the West, we've kept to ourselves for so long that when you have these processions, regardless of how beautiful they are, a lot of the times they're very foreign to people. Now, some people make the argument that you'll see this and you'll be intrigued and you want to ask questions. Yes, that can be the case. But generally speaking, when I've seen people's reaction and their feedback, they think it's a very backward and negative thing. So it's not a case of I have to get rid of this and I have to start over. No, because this is your way of expressing yourself and there's nothing wrong with it. But I think people really need to get away from this idea that I own this religion and my opinion has any weight.
And
somehow I'm superior than the people around me. Sorry, do you want to say that, bro?
No, I was just going to say it's a very good point you made at the end, that sometimes it feels that many people think we own the religion or we own Imam Hussein.
Yeah.
He owns us, we don't own him. He is the master, we are the slaves. So when a master commands, the slave is to obey.
Mm-hmm.
And disobedience to the master is a sin. Sometimes human beings are emotional, You cannot have a human being without emotion. A human being without emotion.
And that's what the rituals are for.
It's not a human being.
It's not a human. In fact,
that's a robot.
Some argue even animals have some emotion in them.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that the human who is of a greater intellect, who has a greater faculty of intellect, will have greater emotion. So it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. And with regards to Azadari, it has changed over time, it is still changing. I remember listening to a scholar, without mentioning any names, a Sayyid who said that all the great Maharaja and scholars have said that we should try to stick and keep to our traditional rituals of Azadari, and there's no need to lose them unless the situation presents itself. But the vast majority of time they said keep your rituals, keep your Azadari in whichever village you're from or whichever country you are from, because it is these rituals that your fathers have passed on to their children, and they have passed on to you, and that is the reason that you take your kids to the mosque in the future. I agree that sometimes the person watching the procession may not understand, or he may take it in a negative way, but that's maybe because he doesn't understand. Like there's a hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen, what you do not understand is an enemy to you. In my own words, Imam Ali says, what you do not understand, you take it as your enemy, though it may not be your enemy. So my point is that Azadari will always change. What we have today didn't exist 300, 400, 500 years ago. The Azadari in the times of the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt was maybe much different to our time, and God knows 20, 25, 30 years to come.
Sure.
We don't know where we will be. But this is reality. Human beings evolve, human beings change, cultures adapt, new things come in and go out. But if we can keep the main concept of Azadari of Imam Hussein, keep it as pure as we can, I guess intentions have to be pure.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, Imam Hussein will only look at your intention. He will not look at who attended the most processions, or who was the loudest reciter, or who was in the front
their
ranks
chest
of
aloud and the
beating.
hardest.
Yeah, Imam Hussein will look at the intention. You could be standing right at the back, you could shed 1 or 2 tears, but if you did it with the niyyah, with khulus, with purity, to get close to Allah, to get close to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Allah will accept that of you.
Inshallah.
I mean,
That's
a lot of it is to do with the concept of love. Now, when you ask, what is love about? It's about following that person, right? Now, if you're going to be stubborn and say, no matter what's going to change, I'm not going, no matter what anyone says, I'm not going to change. Then you have to ask yourself, what kind of love is this? If you truly were to love the Imam and love Allah, then you would listen to their ways and submit to their ways.
That's arrogance, what you're talking about right there, and I think a lot of human beings are plagued with it. And if they would just learn to get rid of it, or minimize it, or eliminate it,
there needs to be a real, people need
great.
to take it upon themselves to have a real understanding of religion. Don't always depend on someone from the community to do something for you. Have that real sense of religion, because the more you understand the Ahlul Bayt, the more you understand the Prophet, the more you understand Islam, it becomes more than just something that's emotional, and more of an historical lesson. Because what's happening now is a lot of the times that this Azadari has been taken as a form of having fun, and instead of people actually expressing themselves, it's become like a chest beating session. Like, bro, this isn't the gym.
That's it. Exactly. I think we, as the Azadar, the mourners for Imam Hussein, we need to take ownership. We, like you said, we can't just sit down and sit in front of the pulpit. If you want to listen properly. We don't even do that. Take notes if you want to. That's brilliant, so that you can revise when you get home. You can speak to your family members, even in the way, in the car to your way home. Talk about it. So what did the speaker say?
The lecture is considered the boring part.
Exactly. Everybody just wants to come in when the eulogy start, or when the masayib start. Take ownership, and you're not sheep. That's not what Imam Hussein alayhi salam intended you to be. He wanted you to be a free man. And obviously we're not representing that. I think that's where the clash is. That's where the contradictions are. You shouldn't take something like Azadari, which is such a pure ritual, if you want to call it a ritual. And then we have in Iraq, we have the Arba'in procession, where millions are coming, and we know how the turmoil that country is facing.
The largest peaceful, non-political gathering is the gathering of the Azadars.
Only because of time. There's so much to discuss. But what I would like to end with is say that, bear in mind that yes, Azadari plays a huge part in our lives, but also don't forget that this isn't just an emotional thing. Remember, Imam Hussein died to preserve Tawheed in our lives. As long as you keep that in mind, then yes, your Azadari will help you to get closer to Allah. And on that note, it's been deep, guys, but until next time.